There is no doubt that the world is edging towards becoming a cashless society. This would see people no longer needing to carry physical cash in order to carry out their day-to-day lives. I suspect that it will be a really good thing and potentially a really scary thing as it comes into play. Here's why. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese. In today's video, I'm going to be projecting my thoughts about going walletless. Cash, moolah, dosh, paper, whatever you want to call it. It runs the world, and it essentially is being digitalized ever so slowly by what can only be described as the central powers of the world. It is without a doubt in the best interest of the government or governments to remove cash from society. And they project this dystopian cashless future as something that will be convenient and useful to the everyday user of money, which is everyone. And while I do agree that it will be amazing, it will be convenient, it will be useful, I'll touch on that in a minute, it is also going to be concerning. The concept we're looking at here is citizens handing over their anonymity, piece by piece, creating a way to track and trace every transaction or every dollar that passes through your fingers. Now, while I agree that it absolutely will assist in reducing the amount of shady shit that goes on in the world, it will absolutely also be able to be used in a harmful way to the average citizen. Just as context before I go any further, examples of how we're edging towards a cashless society starts with countries limiting the amount of money or cash that you can use to make purchases with. For example, Australia and Russia have limited cash transactions to a maximum of $10,000. Going even further down the rabbit hole, it is now illegal to make cash transactions of over 1,000 euros in Italy. France has limited cash transactions to 1,000 euros as well, and Spain has limited them to 2,500 euros. And other countries are starting to follow this trend of limiting the amount of cash that can be spent on big purchases. Now, as a result of this limiting of cash spending in these countries, there are pros and cons, and there is support and conflict between the idea behind becoming a cashless society. The reasons why going cashless would be such a good thing would mainly be driven from the perspective of criminal activity. Having a digital-only currency would somewhat prevent fraud, money counterfeiting, and money laundering. Money laundering is estimated to exceed $4 trillion a year, which is an insane amount of money. There's a lot of zeros involved in that example. So it's easy to understand why governments would want to remove this, let's call it, method of handling money from society's grasp. This would also give an edge to governments and banks where they can now track and trace all of your transactions, making sure that the money that's coming into your bank accounts and the money that's going out all adds up. So come tax time, they can now get a much better, let's say, read or understanding of the amount of tax that you should be paying at tax time, basically or essentially funneling more money into an economy, which is amazing. The other reason why a cashless society would be good would be from the perspective of businesses. Now, I used to work in a supermarket behind a register. I was a checkout person. So I know firsthand, I did that for about 2 years. I know firsthand how easy it would be to miscount money and hand the wrong changeover, resulting in the owner of the store losing money. On top of that, I knew people who stole from the till. They would take money out, and that adds up quickly. That's a lot of money over a lot of years that would go missing and be removed from their overall float, essentially taking profits away from those businesses. On top of this, again, our bosses had to employ someone to count that money. I remember it taking anywhere from half an hour to an hour to count all of the money in all of the tills. That is time, valuable time, that over the course of years would definitely add up. There's a cost to them to handle that money. Let's go one level higher again, and they have to pay someone, or they have to take time out of their own day to take that money from that store to the bank and deposit it. And then again, that's a time commitment thing for the money to appear in their bank account, versus an instant transaction where someone swipes a piece of plastic and essentially within the span of 10 seconds, money is in their bank account, ready to be spent, ready to be invested, ready to be used. The concept here for businesses is unparalleled. It would be so beneficial to them in so many different ways. These are predominantly just simple examples. There are many more as to the benefits of what a cashless society could provide to people. Do you notice how I didn't mention any examples of the individual user such as you. I only really mentioned governments and businesses being the primary victor of becoming a cashless society, because now I'm going to basically cover the negatives as to what the issues with becoming a cashless society would be. Firstly, as I already mentioned, governments and banks would now be able to track and trace every transaction that you make. Now, for the average Joe, no one's really going to care about that, but it's essentially a form of data mining. They can just collect multitudes of data about you. Why is this a problem? Data is useful. It is arguably one of the most useful tools to any business, and it is worth money to them. One example of how this data could be used in a harmful way is if they decided to sell that information to advertisers. And on top of that as well, with the track and trace capability, they would now essentially be able to create a blueprint of you, which would show them where you spend time, who you spend time with, and what your spending habits are, which can definitely be used in a harmful way. It also gives more control to banks, where they would now be able to restrict access to your money, theoretically, depending on the situation, because they are now holding your money in a digital format. It's no longer an option for you to go to the bank, withdraw cold hard cash, and tuck it under the mattress. Can you see how that would be harmful? Because I definitely can. Not having the ability to withdraw your money from a bank account effectively takes power away from you. It takes away your power to choose. Now, I just want to touch back on what I said about data collection. Large companies already do this. What's the difference if I give that information to governments and banks, which probably already do this as well? The problem doesn't lie within losing privacy. The problem lies within losing control, because you're handing over more control to people who are supposed to be working for you, not controlling you. That's what governments are designed to do. They're supposed to work for the people. Something like a cashless society has the potential to give them more control and take away a lot of power from you, the individual. And I'm reiterating and I'm stressing it because it's something to be aware of. My thoughts on this topic is that I absolutely am conscious of this happening in the background. I am aware of the behavior of economies and governments and banks shifting towards this cashless society. And with that being said, I still have chosen to go walletless. I haven't carried a wallet, a physical item with plastic cards in it and cash in it for over 2 years. I haven't really found the need to. I have to admit, it is extremely convenient and easy to not have to do that. I don't often carry cash, and I don't remember the last time I actually needed cash to make a payment. I've traveled to some very remote locations in Australia, and they have all accepted a digital currency in one way or another, whether it be via debit card, credit card, or cryptocurrency, funnily enough. On top of that, if I were to lose my phone, I would feel much more comfortable about having my debit cards, my credit cards loaded onto my phone versus losing my actual wallet. I'm pretty comfortable with the security levels. Let's just use Apple as an example. I use Apple Pay to pay for everything. I'm pretty comfortable with the security levels, and I think that it would be quite difficult in comparison for someone to, let's say, break into my phone to get access to my cards to then go spend money from my cards versus stealing my wallet out of my pocket, my bag, or somewhere that I've left it by accident. The convenience here and the level of confidence in the system is just too good not to use. I don't do shady shit, so I'm not really worried about people tracking me. My everyday life is pretty generic. I buy things that everyone buys. I live a life that most people would live. So the data mining thing isn't of concern to me, and I think that I'm relatively susceptible to advertisement and stuff like that as well, making me, again, more comfortable in using the system. However, I do worry that if governments and banks eventually do shift into this cashless society, that they have the potential to abuse their power, and that does worry me a little bit, as it would probably affect my ability to do the things I want to do in life and achieve the goals I want to achieve. But that's a topic for another video. So with that being said, it's something to be mindful of, something to understand. It's an interesting topic for sure, because it's an amazing idea to not have to carry cash on your person anymore to live your day-to-day life. I think that the shift will definitely continue towards us becoming a cashless society, and I'm sure that big corporations, governments will push for that a little bit more and offer incentives and conveniences to drive that push. I don't think it's a terrible thing. I still think there are many benefits that could come out of it, but again, something to be mindful of, something to be aware of, because it is interesting. I hope I didn't scare you in this video. It definitely wasn't my intention, but I did want to have a discussion about a world without cash. Overall, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. And as always, I will see you in the next one in a couple of days. Bye for now.